Well, hello, it's me, James Henry, coming to you live via the internet in whatever places you may be. Or perhaps you're watching this recorded later on. Whatever you're doing, that's great. In any case, I had some thoughts today that I wanted to share, which is why I generate these images, these weekly casts, if you will, webcasts. But a reminder, first of all, you are infinitely precious and unconditionally loved for the gift you already are. So, we are 10 days into a new year. Yes, I know time is a construct and all those kinds of things, and it could have just as easily been next week as the beginning of the year. It doesn't matter. We are 10 days into 2024. And perhaps some of you made resolutions for the new year about all kinds of things in your life. And perhaps 10 days in, you are still going strong. Or perhaps 10 days in, perhaps 2 days in, you dropped the ball on whatever resolution you tried to bind your life to. I want to come here today and suggest to you that perhaps you ought to be gentle with yourself, that you ought to not beat yourself up, that you not let the inner critic inside of you win. The one who somehow seems to get some level of pleasure in undermining your self-confidence in just about anything that you have done or will do by constantly questioning everything about it. For instance, yesterday was Tuesday. Tuesday is normally the day when I like to do these casts, these webcasts on a weekly basis. It's generally my plan. On Tuesdays, it's even on my calendar at noon, so that even if I can't do it at noon, it is a reminder that that is the day for me to do it. And if I do it a little bit before, a little bit after, it'll be fine. Tuesday got away from me. It was kind of a nonstop day where I didn't get a chance to do that which I had planned on doing, this webcast. And so by the end of the day, into the evening, before I led Soul Space, I found myself giving myself a hard time. I found myself saying, here we go. Just another failure in your life. You made a promise to yourself and you didn't keep it up. And it wasn't even a resolution. It's just my usual day to do these broadcasts. But the inner critic within found a way to just kind of pick at me a little bit about having missed it. My inner critic likes to visit me every week after I've preached. Anytime that I've done one of these videos, even after I've done it, saying, oh, we should say it this way, or why didn't you say it the other way, or why would you say that? All those kinds of things. Maybe you don't have an inner critic, and if you don't, I am delighted for you. I really am. But most of us develop the inner critic as a child. Now, from my own perspective, I am not a therapist or a Jungian, psychologist or anything like that. But my understanding and my own experience of the inner critic is sometime in my childhood, in order to protect me from embarrassment. In my case, that's really what it was. I didn't like to be embarrassed. I didn't like to be embarrassed by saying things that in a funny way, or stumbling with my words, or facing those kinds of challenges, or using the wrong terminology, whatever it may have been. And so early on, in order to protect me in social settings, I had this little critic inside that developed as a way of protecting me, of safeguarding me against myself. And so don't say it that way. You don't say it at all. Just be quiet this time, because otherwise you're not going to get affirmation. You're going to get discouragement. So just don't do it. Just don't do it. Just stay in the background. Just be quiet. And the inner critic did what it was trying to do for those years of my childhood, which was to protect me from embarrassment. And every once in a while, I would embarrass myself anyway, and the inner critic would have some new fodder to say, remember that time? Remember that time? Don't answer in class. Don't raise your hand. If they call on you, you don't have a choice. But don't volunteer. Now, eventually I got over that, although the inner critic still did its job. It still thought it had a work to do inside of me. It didn't know that its job was over. No one had ever told it it was done. And perhaps that is true for you too. And so you've got this inner critic inside beating yourself up, telling you you're not quite good enough, that, maybe if you tried harder or did something different, it would, you'd be happier, better, more liked, other kinds of things. I'm here to say to you today, to take a step back, catch your breath, and just be gentle with you, with who you are, because you really are a gift. I don't say those words loosely at the beginning of every week. I know it may sound like it's a habit for me to say those words. You are infinitely precious and unconditionally loved for the gift you already are. But those words are meant to be guiding principles. And if you feel some kind of dissonance or resistance rising in you when you hear those words, that's an invitation to reflect. Perhaps not in this moment. In this moment, you just notice it, note that it's happening, and then let it go. No need to engage it. Excuse me. No need to engage it because it rises. It rises. Just let it go. But perhaps this is an inkling of a couple of things. Now, one of the things I did and continue to do, and it seems to have made my inner critic at least seem less powerful, is I've honored the inner critic. I've said, listen, you did a great job of keeping me alive, protecting me in the only way you knew how, which was to kind of keep me from being beaten up on the outside by someone who disagreed with me or didn't like the way I said it or made fun. You did it by working from the inside, so I didn't have to face that. And I want to thank you, Mr. Inner Critic, Miss Inner Critic, whoever you are. Thanks for what you did, because what you did made it possible for me to be alive today, to be here and to be present right now. But I'm an adult now. And while I want to thank you and honor you for the service you did in keeping me alive, I've got this now. You can retire and you can step back. You don't have to keep doing this for me anymore, because I'm not as concerned about being embarrassed. I say things all the time. And some of them may be embarrassing in retrospect, but I try not to spend a lot of time worrying about that. Be gentle with yourself in this new year. If you've already failed at some resolution, let it go. If it's really worth doing, try again, but not as a means to beat yourself up. That's one of the things that we are so good at, beating ourselves up at, or sometimes not even holding ourselves accountable at all. But that's another webcast. Many of us worry about the public perception of us, worry if people will accept us for who we really are deep inside. And because we're afraid of not being accepted for who we are really inside, we shut ourselves down. And the inner critic helps to do that for us, helps to keep us calm. It gives us a chance to beat ourselves up. My family regularly gets frustrated with me. My son, my wife, when I say negative things about myself out loud, because sometimes the inner critic even speaks out loud. They find it very disheartening themselves. and try to reassert the value that the inner critic has robbed me of, or tried to rob me of. Because you see, the inner value can't be taken away, but it can be hidden because of the smokescreen created by the inner critic. So I want you to try in this new year, make it your intention, not your resolution, to try to be kinder to yourself, to be gentler to yourself. Because what ends up happening when we're really harsh on ourselves, with the inner critic beating ourselves up, it tends to be we pass that along to other people in our relationships and in our lives too. It's not just us. It's because we feel so bad about ourselves. Sometimes to feel better, we let the outer critic come out and point to somebody else. Usually what we're criticizing in them is something that bothers us about us. It's not them, it's us. It all comes back to us. But my encouragement for today and for this year is to be attentive when you hear that voice rising up in you that tries to tell you you're not of worth and value, or that this was an epic fail, or whatever it may be telling you, you're not good enough. Pay attention when that rises. Perhaps talk back. Perhaps thank it for its opinion, which is not your own. Or just be gentle and kind enough to yourself to let it go and recognize you really are infinitely precious. There is no comparison with anyone else. There will never be another you. There never has been another you. There's only the one you, the one reflection of the eternal. You are made in the image of love. You are made in the image of love. And so there'll never be another reflection, mirror of the eternal, of the divine, that's like you. And because of that, you want to keep that mirror reflecting that to the world. You're infinitely precious, but the way you reflect it is not like the way I reflect it, or anybody else does for that matter. So just reflect who you are as the gift you are, because you're already a gift. You may wish you were someone else, which is why you made those resolutions. You may wish to lose weight, gain muscle, be in better shape, all those kinds of things. Great, whatever. Those are nice things. But at the same time, I encourage you to be just a tad bit kinder and gentler with yourself, because you're loved unconditionally for the gift you already are. And you are precious, incomparably so. So no one need compare you to anyone else. So be yourself, and especially be gentle with yourself. And remember,